Yeah, the same experience as you, and it was so uncomfortable. I've been enjoying your podcast. Well, thank you. I'm glad you enjoy the podcast. That's a mutual effort between several of us. I love discounts team, Zoe's treasures team, and myself. So that's the first element, or the first bit of news and information I wanted to go over. Wasn't a bad experience, but it wasn't great. But it was bad enough and not great enough to pretty much shelf it. I'm not really interested in doing any more of those at this point in time. I know some people are curious if I would, and the answer is more than likely no, with the exception of what I talked about just a few seconds ago. Second thing, actually, third thing I wanted to go over. If you're not aware, there is a new commission structure rollout. This is the second commission structure rollout. This is supposed to be a temporary thing that, in my personal opinion, is going to be very similarly structured and or rolled out to the reduced commission that was available or made available to the coin category that has since been applied permanently. Um, as anybody else, I'm sure I know there has been given or provided information for this new commission structure and whatnot. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Okay. Yeah, it feels like it's, they're putting their toe in the waters of lower commission structure. So the thing that I'm happy about is that they're doing it. I'm also happy about the one that they just did previously, where if you get on a per item sale basis, not a total sale basis, if you sell an item that's over $1,500, the dollars over that. So from $1,501 to anything over, whatnot's not taking their fee. You still have the processing fee, I believe, but not the whatnot commission fee. Yeah, Zoe's treasures. Yes, I noticed. Yeah, yeah. On a 90-day rolling principle, it is higher. I did notice that. Zoe's treasures point out that, asking if I noticed that the monthly amount is higher than the premier requirements. And that kind of makes sense to me, Zoe's Treasures. The reason I think that makes sense is they're trying to create a tiered drive towards success on here. So you have goal oriented elements. I'm not really a fan of the goal oriented aspects of the premier status, but you reach that, and then your next goal is to get to a reduced commission, and then continue to get to reduced commissions. So the nice thing is the reduced commission element levels up what I would consider a pretty fair amount. It's like 1% every X amount of ten thousands of dollars. Let me bring it up and find out. I'll tell you what I was sent. The structure Jeremy is discussing was published 3 days ago. You can read about in help.what.com. Okay. So, Millicent, so they go over like what their intended outcome, or what their goal is to reach in order to keep it implemented or to roll it out further. Was any of that kind of stuff discussed in there? No. So they just talk about the actual structure like this, what they sent, or is it different for other categories? So this is what. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Test runs through November. Yeah, yeah. So this is what I was provided. So you have your standard rate of 8%. And then if you sell $20,000 worth of merchandise, the next month of sales are reduced to 7%, 35,000, 6%, 50,000, 5%, 100,000, 4%. After that, it gets pretty excessive, which is fine. This is the sweet spot for me right here. It is different for other categories. So this is jewelry and watches. Okay. That's under jewelry and watches. So these are elements that I can get behind and I support. Uh, in order for people to elevate their businesses if they so desire and getting benefits as a result. You heard me say a long time ago that I believe that we should have the ability to incorporate lower fees for us to sell higher priced items, because when you're paying 8+% and you're dealing in slim margin merchandise like these days with gold, when you're not a storefront where you jack up the prices based on diamonds and stones and it being a gift for birthdays or weddings or graduations, those elements don't apply to this type of format of selling. So you're really dealing with low margins when you're buying things like gold. And that's why they also lowered the commissions in coins, because the margins that people do business in coins are really low. So them translating that over to the other product categories, I'm a big supporter of. So that way, Whatnot can start to be known as a place of higher price luxury style items. Your high price watches, your designer clothing, your gold coins, all that kind of stuff. And it will only be made available if one of two things happen. They either have to really figure out how to make the environment, the experience on here that much elevated in order to allow for those prices to increase, or lower the commission structure. And lowering the commission structure hits a larger group of people because not everybody has the ability to continue increasing the environmental valuation aspects, the experiential based valuations that can be gotten on here, but not everyone can reach those levels in order to overcome the percentages that were required to pay before. Does that make sense to everybody? So I'm extremely happy that they've done this. And I'm looking forward to what it turns out to be like. Shmi. Shmi is made with a party 16. Shmi, the daily raid from Shmi. Thank you for the raid. You and you alone can feel free to plug your shows. Let everybody know what you sell when you sell it. And anybody that likes it as a safe, please bookmark and follow. Remember, everybody, one and only one person can plug their shows. That's a raider, and the raider only which can do so up to 2 or 3 times in the next several minutes if they so desire. Again, thank you for the raid, and I hope you had a great and wonderful show. So let's get on here. We now have 15 minutes for everyone's gray matter to get cracking, getting rock and roll and juices flowing in the old noggin there. So if you have questions for me, we're going to, for the next 15 minutes, shoot out some questions. Make sure you use a question mark. And remember, during this entire process, I will not answer questions that deal with um, the technicals on here. How do I set up this? How do I do shipping? Because if you ask me anything about shipping, I'm going to tell you it's easy. You do free shipping and set everything at 0 to 1 ounce. Which reminds me, there are a couple things. There are two things I do want to point out here. I'm going to start doing this at the beginning of every show. So I heard the shipping is not going to change. I don't know what you mean, but I do. I can tell you this: the beauty of this new rollout, the shipping prices that you charge other people are not incorporated in that total of sales. Me doing free shipping, me also believing that free shipping helps increase the price points of each item, the entire item sale then essentially is wrapped into my goal numbers to reach the lower commissions. Does that make sense? So if I were to charge shipping and my prices came down as a result of charging shipping, the shipping charges don't get included in the totality of the sale prices. So that is another perspective you may want to start taking in order to maybe capitalize if this becomes a permanent element of commission structure and whatnot. Corgi, I don't know. Flat rate staying for another 3 or 4 months, maybe. I'm sure that they got a lot of backlash for that one and will slowly, cut that out or cut it off over a longer period of time. That doesn't surprise me. That happens a lot with these when they announce it. They find out how many people are upset about it and then allow them to have more time to adjust and accommodate. Free shipping's been working for you. That's awesome. Free shipping elements usually are all right up here as far as being able to apply it. Which I'm going to make these couple of statements here. I've said this before. I should start kicking the show off with this. I want everybody to understand a couple of things here. I've said this before. I do not use these strategies because I'm successful. I'm successful because I use the strategies that I talk about. Everyone understand the difference. Sounds simple, but it is simple. There's a difference in there. People are always saying things like, well, because you have this, because you have that. It's not the case. I have that because I use the systems. Okay. I don't get to use the systems that I talk about because I'm successful. I'm successful because I use the systems. Hopefully you understand and let that sink in. And the other thing is the system to success will not change to accommodate you. You have to change to accommodate it. Okay? That's another element. A lot of people get upset, get irritated, gripe, moan, complain. Understand the platform. The way to be successful is not going to change to accommodate you and your individual wants. You have to change to accommodate for the systems that lead you to success. So now let's get to some questions and then we'll get into the fun topic of the day. We all want to hear about vacuum sales, right? And completely not in that context. Just understand it literally has, well, I shouldn't say literally, it pretty much has nothing to do with actual physical vacuum sales. So, questions, get them out now. You've had time to ask them or get them ready. Real quick, nobody has any questions. Use a question mark. There's 120 plus people in here. Not one person has a simple question. The Ramba vacuum. Yeah. Let's Ramba. That's a good one. That you're being witty. So, how did I come up with it? I could lie and tell you I thought about it, but it was pretty easy. I went to AI and said, I like short and simple names, and I wanted to incorporate my name and have something to do with live selling. It didn't come up with that exactly. I took two different ones and mashed them together, and there you go. What does it mean? Nothing. It's just easy to remember. Deals with me and resale. That's all you need. You don't need a meaning behind the name. You need a easy understanding in order to find it. It means Reece on resale. It's me. My last name's Reece, talking about reselling. I thought maybe simplicity is not that understandable. maybe I went too simple. I don't know. Why isn't I love discounts? That's I'll talk to you guys about that tonight. I don't want reselling roundtable to become a Jeremy show. That's why. That's not what reselling roundtable is supposed to be, and I don't want it to be heavily um, tilted towards that. Them, well, again, we can talk about that. Am I selling? No. Sunday mornings are usually never selling. I mean, we talk about it. If you guys want it to be dual listed on there, that's fine. I don't have any problem with it. But my hope and dreams and desires for reselling roundtable was to be fully involved with the three of us and anybody else that may be, guest speakers and all that kind of stuff coming in. So you thought my last name was Green. Okay, yeah. Yep. Yep. And this has been asked for a long period of time. And yeah. Anyway, any other questions? Any other questions? And the other thing is not even going to be a podcast. It's just going to be this information being directly uploaded at this point. Would you ever be willing to discuss how an individual could successfully sell to a whatnot vendor? I'm not sure what you're asking there. What do you mean by that? Maybe I'm just thick. I don't understand it. You're gonna have to articulate that a little bit differently for me. Do I post on socials to bring new eyes to your live stream? Absolutely not. Nothing on in the social world has been incorporated into my business till recently, and that was due to other people like M deciding to start a Instagram page, and that was just in the last several months. Outside of that, I'm homegrown on Whatnot for the last 5 years. So when people say it helps, maybe. My perspective is focus on the important thing. The important thing is selling on here. Focus on that, get good at that. And then when you have time and availability to focus on other attributes of bringing people from other places to you, you also want to do that once you already have some grounding in success and you're familiar with the processes on here. Why do you want to start having people come if you're not comfortable or familiar, and leverage those other attributes? And you're also kind of spreading your your butter a little too thin across the bread when you are trying to get stuff from all over the place. Stay focused on what you want to get. This is this is the monetization part. This is where you make your money. So if this is where you're going to make your money, that's the main goal. You might focus on that and then spread your wings. Like commission? Are you talking about consigning stuff? Okay. I'll get back to some of these other questions. Consigning stuff I never suggested, and you have customers on both ends. I've done consignments. I do not like customers on both ends. Consignments can give you a pathway to understanding of what an entire estate or collection of stuff may be of value. So you could take it from the perspective of doing from of that to do it for a little while, just so you start getting a good gut feeling with what a sale could bring in. But and as far as commissions go, don't ask me what commission to charge. It has to be determined on what profit margins you look for in your business model. My business model is going to be different than yours. Where I'm at will be different than yours. I'd probably, if I was going to do it, be able to charge cheaper commissions than you. Um, well, I shouldn't say that. I don't know what you have as far as valuations that you get on your merchandise. The higher the valuations you can get on your merchandise, the lower the commissions you can give, thereby giving you the opportunity to get more merchandise. I apply that same principle towards buying stuff because I'd rather buy it and own it and sell it and not have to deal with upset customers and dealing with customer service on this buy side and sell side, dealing with returns and customer service after it's sold, and then going back to the customer and either you eating those costs associated with that or going back and saying, hey, I actually have to give you less money because people are complaining about the merchandise or not complaining, but there was an issue, all that kind of stuff. I've been there, done that. Just not worth it. Not worth it. Learn how to just offer them the opportunity to buy it outright, make them understand that when you put it on an auction, it's a gamble and you're providing them with a guarantee. It's not that hard for people to understand. You provide a guarantee, not a gamble. I'll pay you all this. That's what you walk away with, no risk. And there's no contracts. You don't have to write up contracts. You don't have to make sure that you are allowed to do it. Certain states have restrictions on what you can do when it comes to consigning other people's merchandise. You have to be bonded and insured to cover any losses that they might come after you legally for. All that. There's a lot more that you really have to take into consideration if you're going to start consigning merchandise for people. And that's not for me. Treating my sellings as my own social platform, doing my own experiment. Nice. Yeah, I mean, if you have merchandise to sell, you can peruse through Whatnot. You're asking your retired vendor who have merchandise to sell, are there Whatnot vendors who may be willing to buy my merchandise? Absolutely. You just go to sellers here, and if they're selling the type of stuff that you have, contact them and see if they're interested. I mean, what's the worst going to happen? They're going to say no. Just don't turn into a spammer. How many people do I employ? Right now, I think it's 6. How long has M been working for me? Over a year, between 1 and 2 years. I don't remember exactly. dealing engaging with her on a daily basis practically. It feels like 10 years, even though I've only been on Whatnot for 5, a little over 5, but I'm just joking. You guys know that. We all absolutely adore, love him. So, any other questions? Still got a couple minutes. If I didn't get your question, please ask it again. Make sure you use a question mark, and then we're going to get into the topic of the day. No, no more questions. Come on. That that's it. Okay. I'm going to start requiring questions. Everyone's going to have to come and submit their questions ahead of time. Oh, best advice for new sellers. Somebody did ask that. Sorry, I missed that. If you're scared to death to come on, uh, a fear only lasts as long as you're willing to avoid it. You always hear me say that. That's my little saying I came up with years and years ago that inspired me to get over the fact that I'm going to have fears, and that's just the state of the matter. There's no getting away from it. And the only way to get over it is to expose yourself. So the best advice for sellers is to get in and do it. Honestly. I mean, I know it sounds simple. You got to get in and understand that you're going to fail forward. Failures are your shortest path to success. You're going to learn more through your failures, and you are going to trying to prepare to prevent your failures. So let the learning happen. Okay. Start failing, start learning, start adjusting and accommodating for those failures, or not accommodating, but accommodate towards success through the failures from what you learn. Trust me, you'll learn way faster. Your learning curve will be a lot easier to handle and deal with, but you just got to get on and start selling. Beyond that, there's a lot of intricacies of the model in which you want to sell, the style you want to sell, and all that kind of stuff is things you can go around to the different chat shows and maybe get whatever feels right to you. You can continue listening to me, but honestly, watch other sellers. And if you see a seller that's doing what you think is considered successful and you like what they're doing, incorporate a lot of what they have. Yeah, like, no one has a copyright on the style of selling or the manner in which they sell or the merchandise they're selling, especially when it comes to reselling items. You might have a copyright on the actual product somewhere. I don't know if anyone on here sells their own copyrighted merchandise, but you understand what I'm saying. M's is getting really good at acquiring merchandise. You guys are really going to enjoy as long as we end up receiving those items in time. Her next show. So the project M is going really well. If I were to launch a new, if you were to launch a new product line on Whatnot, would you do any sponsorship in cross categories in larger sellers? No. Um, I can't really answer that question because launching products is not something I've any interested in or put any thought towards. So what I would do, I don't know. I mean, just to be flat out honest, creating a product is not something I have any desire to do. There's enough product out there to be purchased and resold that creates way less friction in my business model. Well, Lady Z, I'm glad to hear it. I'd like to know what it was, but it's 8:30. Maybe. Oh, you know what? I forgot. We'll deal with that later. I'm so sorry, Zoe's Mine and Zoe's Treasured. I wanted to put the tickets in for the. I got to talk about that too, and then we'll get to the topic. Lady Z reminded me. So basically, Lady Z, you have to buy a ticket and you have to show up, and then you can tell me all about it in person because I would love to hear in person. Of course, you could always call me, but that wouldn't be as fun. And I couldn't use the event as leverage in order to get you to come there to talk to me, right? So, Lady Z, that's awesome. I'm glad. I'm glad. Funny enough, he uses the bin. Hey, uh, I don't doubt it. Listen, all the strategies I talk about, I don't say that the bin isn't a viable option to utilize the strategies I talk about. I, as you know, just believe there are better utilizations that don't involve the bin. Comparative based shopping and stuff uh, those psychological principles behind that, and can you leverage that in the bin? 100%, absolutely. But you know my perspective. There are better options out there, but that's not what we want to talk about today. Listen, I talk about a lot of stuff. I go into things and I neglect to understand that I've spent 5+ years um, incorporating behavioral principles, behavioral economics, behavioral sciences, um, things of that nature into my selling styles. And it's not something everyone else reads on a regular basis or studies or have utilized or applied consciously. Does it happen subconsciously? Yes. Just upon observation, you realize certain things happen and you do it. You don't know why. Like I Love Discounts talks about when I talk about these principles, they go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. I do that. So that's what that's called. So I want to go way back. I want to start a multi part series here. That's what we're doing. I want to go way back. Okay. Ramba. Yeah. I'm going to go way back. All right. We're going to talk about what I call the points of vacuum. When I say vacuum, I'm talking about a vacuum in the perspective of us as buyers in value. Okay. There are key time frames throughout history that these vacuums became available. And what I mean is the vacuum is actually an opportunity to create a new value base. So you hear everyone talk about that's only worth this, that's only worth that, so on and so forth. And we all have lived long enough to actually experience some of these stages that I'm going to be talking about, where you notice that prices either elevated drastically or they dropped drastically due to one of these key events. Okay. So we're going to go through, we're going to go, no, not eggs. I'm talking about not something that has to do with commodity prices and change. I'm talking about commerce as a whole. Okay, we're gonna go way back. All right, initially, the way commerce worked was totally objective. Okay, it was all based and rooted in fundamental principles of supply and demand, based on real events, real actual quantity, and real actual demand. We're talking about the barter system days. All right. At that point in time, we knew exactly, based on those principles, what was worth what. There was nothing other than exchanging goods for goods. And then, instead of going deep into that, we all understand, right? I don't have to ask everybody, right? We all understand the principles of the barter system, and that was completely objective. The values were strictly based on the needs more than wants. The want aspect was not leveraged. It was what you needed to survive, what you needed to get from day to day. Then we started getting into some wants, but it was still based on the barter system. Time goes by, something gets incorporated. Okay. Can anyone guess what gets incorporated into the system of commerce that starts leading to the end of this path that we're taking? You got it. Money, 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 money. So currency gets injected. One point in time, you would trade one good or service, okay, one resource for another resource. Became complicated as routes expanded, as the world got bigger and got more interconnected. They had to figure out something that would alleviate the problem. And it also created the opportunity for places to become destination locations, where instead of hoping that you would take a certain resource over here, you could trade it for another resource and bring it back. Money was created. So now you have a middleman. Now you have a middleman. But you still had the fundamental principles of money. What was money initially made out of? What was money made out of? I'll answer gold and silver. Predominantly money that got generally accepted across all traders was shells were a form. That's an exception to the thing that was very limited and a more of a counting unit method than it was. Uh, we're not going to go every single step of the way. We're going to do a little leaps. We're going from the barter system to the main fundamental principle that changed the principles of how we valued items, and that's money. Yeah, because they used beads and they used shells and all that kind of stuff. But we're not doing a whole history lesson on the evolution of currency. So over time, that allowed for the steps into what we would call the brick and mortar sales system, which created another vacuum in value. The more currency progressed, currency went from being solid silver and eventually started getting closer to what it is today, which is a fiat currency. It became more and more subjective in value. And what you have to understand is if the value of your currency is subjective, that means everything you purchase is going to be subjective. So the path goes from a fundamental objective principled buying and selling, well, not even buying and selling, but it was bartering, to the entire concept of buying and selling through the way of a currency. And then over time, that currency, essentially, as far as the objective value to it, got diminished through percentages of the gold and silver getting diminished and diminished and diminished over time. I think some of the Roman coins got all the way down to like 1% silver. They realized that they could leverage the faith-based aspect, the the subjective value of the coin to basically create a closer element of what we have today of a true 100% fiat currency. It's only worth what we decide it's worth. So another vacuum was created when we went from that, the barter system, over the evolution of time to a brick and mortar style sales. It took a long time to get from one to the next of modern day brick and mortars, but as we know, technology has sped up the process from one vacuum of value attribute to the other, and we're going to go through all of them. So you went from that to brick and mortar. Brick and mortar allowed us to start creating perspectives, subjective value to items. And how did they do that, everybody? How did the brick and mortars start creating a subjective value to things? It was no longer something you exchange one resource for another. You'd go into a store. I'll tell you how they did it in multiples of ways. Well, but it wasn't that simple. It was subjective supply creating artificial demand. Okay. You could limit the amount of stuff that was on the shelf. They could control what was in their warehouses in order to create false elements of supply. They could capitalize instantly on a demand by observing what was empty on the shelf at any given moment. Lots of elements started going into place in order to create their own value out of merchandise. The other thing, think about car sales. Let's go to car sales. You walk into transportation at one point in time was a direct trade. Okay. One resource for another during the barter system. Now you walk in, what people don't realize is you don't know what a modern day car is worth unless you have something to compare it against. But what do you have to compare it against other than subjective valuations? You go into a car dealership, they would use principles, psychological principles started being able to be leveraged through this mechanism of subjective uh, valuations. Does anybody remember? It's not that way right now. Things have had to change to accommodate for another leap, and that's the next one we're going to talk about from barter to brick and mortar. You remember when you'd walk into a showroom at a uh, at a dealership? They always had what, 3, 4 cars in the showroom. Does anybody remember this? They still like you walk into showrooms these days and it's nowhere near like that. Like I went to the Subaru dealership. There's no cars in the showroom. They're all out in the lot. They have a completely different element of how they deal with selling cars these days. But we're talking the transition to the brick and mortar principle. What they would do is they would have 3 different price point cars in there. They still do. I know they're still old. They still do. They still can take advantage of these principles. They have 3 or 4 different cars in there. We all know that the cars all have different price points. They also have the comparative models of said car in the showroom out on the lots. So they would utilize things like the decoy effect, where you'd see a car if it was a certain type you wanted. You also saw cars in there that had a high price point in there that would be utilized for your anchoring effects that we talk about with arbitrary coherence in order to influence the mid-tier valued car that's sitting in there. And then that mid-tier value car would be compared against the lower tiered value car. And the price points were just strategically placed that the lower one to the mid one was just enough to probably make that lower one worth buying, but the higher one was just a little bit too much. And they always had the huge profit margins on the middle car. That's called the decoy effect. And then they would have the different models that they could upsell you through the process. So you pick the middle tiered value car, and then based on the middle tier, you're willing to spend more on the upgrade, so on and so forth. Does this sound familiar to you when walking into a car dealership 10, 15 years ago? The answer is yes. This is what happened to you. Whether you realize it or not, that's what happened to you. That's them taking advantage of the principles through a fiat currency, subjective valuations. Okay. That is all leverageable now because it's not a barter system. It's not just transportation for transportation. One point in time, you know, take a donkey, take a horse, take a cart. Not the case anymore. Now they can upsell you. Now they can influence you. They can talk about different people that have the car. They can influence your buying decisions through commercials. They can influence your buying decisions through TV ad, not ads, through placement in movies, popular shows, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, taking it out for a ride. Yeah, starts. There's so many different immersive elements that come into play that now can be leveraged to change the value. That's the second value. That's the actually the first phase of the value vacuum that was created that they were able to capitalize on and start getting more money. Before, again, in the objective aspect, it was okay, you need to make so much money, so be it. You needed it in order to accomplish X, Y, and Z, directly related to supply and demand. I need that for this much money so I can do this to accomplish that. Now it's, I want that. Well, how much money can I get out of that want? And we have no basis of understanding what something really is worth until somebody gives us a comparative analysis for it. You don't know that spending $12 for a coffee at Starbucks is expensive until you go to McDonald's and get one for $2. Okay. Somebody that's looking for just coffee, you wouldn't know. If McDonald's was charging $9 for coffee and Starbucks was charging $9 for coffee, it would seem reasonable to you. You understand? But Starbucks provides it a different environment, capitalized on that, and started uh, providing a way for people to pay large amounts of money for something that was simply just a cup of coffee when I was a kid. Blueberries are $9 now. Is everybody following so far? Do you understand? Everyone following along? I got to make sure we understand where we're going. Spectacular. Like I said, I can dig deep into this, and I'm probably going to dig even deeper into this. And I don't want to hit everybody with a ton. I'm trying to do the broad aspects, and then we'll probably get a little more granular in a future show because this really is the foundation that I'm trying to build on, so people understand the totality of how all this works for you to be able to capitalize on it when you get to the end, and how what we have the opportunity to capitalize on. When we'll have another opportunity like this, I don't know. It's probably, two, maybe three times in a lifetime. And when I'm talking about live stream selling. Now, what do we go to from brick and mortar? Everybody, what's the next vacuum of opportunity and value? The next time a new baseline is created for capitalizing on value. Yeah, e-commerce, e-commerce, online. E-commerce came along and injected itself, and a whole new principle of valuations came into play, and elements of capitalizing on subjective principles and influential principles. more so than anywhere else. They're on 20, you could shop 24 hours. They created trust for you to buy online through providing feedback ratings, reviews, things of that nature. They started utilizing algorithmic formulas based on your previous search histories in order to push merchandise that you're willing to spend more money on than you otherwise would have been in a more objective value based economy. Start relying heavily, even more so, on the influence of items in uh, sports, even more than the previous elements, because you're watching, because of what you're watching online. A new baseline of valuations came, a new vacuum of leverageable value. So if you actually go back and track how things have gotten more and more expensive, each tick of what I'm talking about increases exponentially. And it's because we have no rooted objective perspective on any value of anything. And now the elements of psychology and behavioral principles are ingrained and so well known of how we habitually make our decisions and subconsciously make our, how we consciously and subconsciously make our decisions. And it's all leveraged into one point and taken advantage of in order to uh, increase the prices that you are willing to pay for merchandise. Convenience fee. You realize how much money you pay essentially to make things convenient, and then how you, through recency bias, which is because you did it for one thing, you're going to be willing to do it for another. How many people went from, the fact of needing to go to the mall and you had to make a day of it to make it worthwhile in order to go shopping. And then when you're done, you're exhausted at the end of the day because it's an event. You have some fun, but also it's a big, huge immersive event. You come back, and then eventually e-commerce comes along, and you can sit back and order what you need in bite-sized elements throughout the day, throughout the evening, whenever it's convenient for you. Convenience became ridiculous. Now people are ordering everything. They're ordering their groceries that way. They're ordering their meals out that way. And they also go from, instead of cooking at home, now you can just order food and have it delivered to your front door from all the surrounding restaurants. And you're paying more for that. They'll also be able to capitalize on the fact that they follow your trends, what you're interested in, and they're going to push it to you. You're going to push the ads, you're going to push the influential mechanisms that cause you to want to buy things at certain times a day. It's crazy. But all this was as a result of a new shift, a new vacuum to capitalize on a new value base. Now, you no longer shop at Walmart. We're going to eventually go into this, like I said, in a more granular, principled manner from one phase to the next, trying to paint the broad spectrum. Where are we at now? Where are we at now? What's happening now? You're seeing it. Whether you may not see it, but you'll start seeing it because it's everywhere right now. It is starting to be ingrained everywhere. Live stream, social is part of it. Live stream. They have live stream aspects that they're doing on Alibaba. They have live stream that they're doing on the river. They have live stream aspects on TikTok. They have it on everything. Why? Because whether they realize it or not, and they do, they just haven't articulated it. This is the new value vacuum. Just like what happened in every other step, new value principles were determined. New value for items were determined. Okay. Like during the e-commerce phase, eBay coming online made people readjust their perspective on value of items, whether that be for the higher or the lower. It exposed when things were not as rare as people once thought. It also created an opportunity for higher prices because it opened up multi-state sales to every individual person, thereby creating more demand for what supply was out there, increasing the value. Now we have the ability to take all the elements, the immersive aspects of the brick and mortar where people would go in. You can't take all the immersive elements, you can't take smell or taste, but way more elements. You can explain smells and tastes to people on here. We are getting into what I call the X element, experience based commerce, X commerce, where we are going to be able to leverage a plethora of experience based principles in order to readjust the perception of value of any type of item that is sold. And we're at the forefront of it, we're at the infancy of it. It's going to be dynamically altering for all of commerce. There's stuff that I haven't even talked about, there's stuff that people haven't even thought about that are going to be able to be leveraged for this element. Eventually, we're going to be getting to probably augmented reality type of aspects, like limited augmented reality. We already know that there's going to be a demand for people to utilize things like glasses for live stream selling. Who here would not love that attribute just alone? It's going to come as this type of selling gets bigger. I would love to be able to do my live. Yes, lots of us need that. If I could have my camera and a thing on my hand in order to do that, total, yeah. Immersive based selling, experience based selling, the X commerce is coming and it's going to fundamentally change what things are worth. Now, here's the thing though, it's going to rely heavily on the human factor for a while because that's the element that creates the experience. Um, but it'll eventually get to more systematized processes as we learn what works and doesn't work. But what you have to understand is you are creating and have the ability to create that experience, that value for yourself. That is why when you sell stuff, what it brings is your value. And don't ever shortchange yourself. Don't ever think you can't also get to the point where you can get extra value. Don't ever sit there and go, oh, this sold for X amount over here and someone paid too much for it. That's not the case. We are creating new value bases here. Some may be down, some may be high. Vermont Vintage Finds rating with a party of 116. Well, there's a raid and a half. Thank you very much for the raid. You and you alone can feel free to plug your shows. Let everybody know what you sell when you sell, and anybody likes you as to say, please build more can follow. Remember, everybody, one and only one person can plug their shows. That's a raider and the raider only, which can do so up to 2 or 3 times in the next several minutes if they so desire. Again, thank you for the raid. I hope you had a great and wonderful show. Anybody that's joining us, this is a chat show. I'm going over a pretty in-depth topic right now about the generational changes of commerce and the value principles and the vacuum of value that is created when we change from one generation of selling style to another. We're going through from the whole way back from the barter system, brick and mortar e-commerce, and then from e-commerce to what I am now referring to as x-commerce, experience-based selling. So what I was saying before we got that wonderful raid in here, you are creating a new value based on an experience, based on more of the what will continue to be the subjective valuation principles that run our entire economy anymore and will for probably the foreseeable future, for my life, for your life, and for generations to come. Don't shortchange yourself, and also don't get upset if your values are less than what the prices were brought on other environments. That is all going to shift. I promise you, the values are going to become more reliant on what things bring in these environments than the previous environments that are going to become a bygone era. Much like brick and mortar is a fraction of what it was. I was just talking to my uncle about this. I remember years ago, the square of my town used to be filled with little bakeries, little shops. You could go get clothing, you could go get hardware, you could go get anything and everything essentially that you can get online right now was available right in the square from small little vendors, small shops, small business owners. Now the only thing available are stuff that you can't get as easily online. Tattoos, restaurants, food, insurance, lawyers, services. It's all service-based stuff along those lines. It is not anything out there. So what's going to happen is the shift from the style of which people are buying online is going to become very heavily ingrained to buying online in this form. And it's going to dynamically change the values of items. So, one of the things that I really want to make people understand and why I'm going down all of this is I see too frequently people complaining about prices, either on the upside or the low side. And that's because they neglect to understand this new value and vacuum that is being capitalized on or being subject to. Live selling is to e commerce as e commerce was to brick and mortar, which is what I call experience based commerce, X commerce. Okay. There's some similarities now, but it's going to dynamically change and shift more and more and more, just like e commerce did. E commerce created certain elements to create a familiar feel to brick and mortar. They created the shopping cart, right? At one time, they even had a checkout lane environment built into their sales methodology or sales systems. That was to have a familiar principle based concept to the previous way of shopping. Now we're used to being online. We don't need that. That's why Whatnot doesn't need to ever incorporate a cart. A lockbox, maybe, like I said, where you have your commitments where you can't back out of like you can in a cart, that type of stuff. But it's going to be dynamically different. And that's why when you sell, it's perfectly fine. Make I just was talking to some of my sources right now. Okay. When they talk about valuations, I tell them now, you have to understand the landscape of sales is changing. Some of your stuff's going to be worth more to me, and some of your stuff's going to be worth less to me because of the changes. There's no two ways about it, which ultimately, in the end, kind of evens itself out for the people that I source from. People are going to start recognizing the speed at which you can sell stuff in these platforms. What's that going to do? Make people willing to sell things for less because of the value they can get out of the volume aspects, thereby making things less valuable, essentially, certain categories less valuable to when people are selling it to you. I had somebody come in the other day and we just told them that. We were like, look, we sell stuff on a platform called Whatnot now. So live selling. I can sell hundreds of items in hours as opposed to 10 items in days or weeks or months. So the value on that is not there for us anymore. And I'm not the only one that is starting to notice that these shifts are happening when you go to auctions, when you're buying online. Certain things are bringing less, certain things are bringing more. Will it all, like I said, even out? Yes, but there's going to be a dynamic value shift and you're going to continue seeing it. And it's your job to be ahead of the curve, understand this, and buy accordingly and sell accordingly. But you buy accordingly and sell according to what, everybody? Yeah. What are you going according to now? You're creating the new principles of value. You are able to capitalize on this new vacuum that has been created with this opportunity to have a experiential based sales environment. And when I say experiential based, I'm talking you get to engage with people, you get to sell people based on they get to ask you questions live, you get to describe it in great detail. You can talk about whether it smells moldy, whether it looks brand new. there's just so many elements you don't understand. Not to mention, you get to bring in character elements of you as a person and your personality traits. You get to capitalize on, me. People sometimes seem to enjoy listening to my voice. Things you never were able to do before in what I call an optics only environment. E-commerce was literally an optics only environment. Now we have what was previously an immersive environment that people capitalized on in the brick and mortar world. E-commerce became optics only, and now guess what we get to do? We get to incorporate some of the elements of all of that, which the other ones could not. How do I think? I listen. I'm not a fortune teller. What I will tell you is the changes are coming. They're going to continue to come, and you have to make sure you're paying attention. This is no different, in my opinion, than the days. If you were around when eBay fundamentally changed the resale world for the antiques and collectibles market, for coins, for any resale element, who here remembers that? Fundamentally changed it across the board. The difference is it happens faster now than it did then. And it happened pretty freaking fast back then. Back then, they had to start incorporating in order for it to work at a rapid pace. They had to start providing the ability for trust, which was done through feedback. So that concept had to be developed. The trust and payment method, that's where PayPal came along. All that kind of stuff had to start getting made. Credit card companies started realizing they could capitalize, started providing safety nets to purchases online, so on and so forth, to capitalize on the up and coming attributes of selling. This is not going to be any different. I shouldn't say any different. It's going to be different in its practice, but as far as the totality of the shift and change of how values are going to be influenced because of this. Just think about this aspect, everybody. Let's talk about one of the topics I talked about before, and that was the pallet pools. When pallet pools first came on here, people were paying crazy amounts of money for them. I saw a drastic drop in value of pallet pools, and you know why? It's because this platform, just like the Bay did back in the day, provided the transparency of how much merchandise was actually out there. Remember when I talked about before they were able to control the perception, whether they knew it or not, of demand, not of supply, thereby controlling the demand? You didn't know how many shoes of a certain type were filled in those gaylords of boxes and boxes out there. If you ask me questions, I'm not reading them right now. I'll open it up for question and answer session here in a second. Next thing you know, you're scrolling through the pallet pools on here and any other site, and you're seeing the same brand shoes, the same exact style, the same exact sizes in everybody's pallets. And what happened to the valuations? Because there's all these warehouses that were buying them off of these, the market, the truckloads full of them. They didn't even know how many there were out there. Yes, they all went down. Who here observed that? I don't even go on all the time and observe that like that. It happened pretty freaking quick. Wasn't even a beanie baby effect. It's just the fact that people don't realize how much of a certain item ends up getting made. It's gonna have that's gonna and think about this. You realize that those businesses had a structure built around that, knowing that if they bought in bulk in a large enough quantity, that these pallet buyers would absorb and slowly sell all this stuff out for them after they sold the allotment they thought they were going to be able to sell. So they would essentially overbuy, knowing that hey, if I'll have enough to sell more if I need to. If a little less sells, no big deal. All these people are my floor. They're going to buy all this stuff. We have all the numbers, and then they're going to slowly sell it. And then this platform came along, or these type of platforms came along, and no one wants to miss out. Now the volume principle kicks in, things are starting to sell for less, profit margins are shrinking, things of huge magnitude as far as the supply side starts getting more transparent, and it's going to shift just like eBay did. Certain things that people thought there was more of, you're going to find out there's not as much. Certain things they thought there was you know, tons of, not as much, and the other way around, where they thought there was tons of it, none of it, and then there is none of it, and then tons of it. But that's just one little element. And that's not even an element I want to focus on. I want to focus on the fact that we have the opportunity to create an experience to create additional value to our items that we're selling and beyond. There will be elements that will be able to be capitalized on. The subscription principles that were incorporated in the past for e-commerce to build buy-in and trust, and that is also falls into the endowment effect, where you basically get committed through an element of ownership and reoccurring payment. That's going to come to this. It will. There will be those principles built in. There will be principles where you'll be able to capitalize on more than just selling items. The stuff that I was hoping that would happen a lot faster, it'll happen. There's too much opportunity for it to not happen. It'll become more and more immersive, more and more experiential, thereby creating opportunity. And the more you pay attention to it, the more you stay ahead of it, the more likely you'll have success within it. And do I have any? I don't have any knowledge as to what's going to happen. All I know is things are going to happen and things are going to change. And I have to pay attention to them, keep my finger on the pulse, and adapt or die. How do you harness it? We're gonna. That's part of why I'm talking about this. That's why it's a multi-part series. The harnessing attributes come in the future talks. The way I do things now, eventually, I mean, the value aspect of the way I sell to harness these applications that are available or made available to us in this new vacuum of value and experience based commerce, or like I said, the what I would refer to as the X commerce now, that's even going to go away. It's going to continue to change. I wanted it to change faster, but I found out that that's not going to be the case. So I settle in and do what I can and make sure I try to pay attention, and whether I have the ability or the wherewithal to keep adapting as the changes come. I know a lot of people ask me about handmade. Somebody's asked me, what is your opinion on the handmade category on valuation? That, that that's too tough for me because it's a world I would not enter. Like I said, with building products, I said that earlier. It's just not something that I've done any research. There's enough of merchandise out there already pre-existing, uh, that people already did all the work on that end that I don't want to undertake. So I don't have any advice for you or idea where things would lead in that world. Keep your questions, because first it is 9/11. We went over the broad strokes of what I want to talk about. I'll get more granular in the next chat, and then after that, the next chat's going to be more about this, more granular principles between the different phases. So we can just go a little more in depth, I should say, with this, and then we'll start talking about stacking the principles that I utilize, understanding the opportunity through the subjective price principles that are now made available to us, and all that much more made available to us through live stream selling. So, any quick questions that deals with what I just got done talking about? There might not be too many, considering everyone knows I'm going to talk about it even more next Sunday. That's the plan. And then we're going to compound. And don't forget, everybody, this information is now going to be made available and is currently in the process. There's some you can go watch right now, but it'll all be available for your viewing pleasure on YouTube. I don't know if Zoe's Mod's still here and wants to throw that handle, the YouTube handle, up in the chat again. If not, I'll get it then. Do we have any quick questions, comments? It's right there. There you go. Zoe's Mod and yeah, they just put you just got both in there. It's Reece, which is my last name, on Resale. Reece on Resale. It'll be available. So this is the beginning of doing that. I wanted to do a multi-part series. I've been telling people I wanted to do it, so I'm going to do it more structured. And since I'm doing it, going to be putting effort towards it, we're going to be making it available over there on that channel. So it seems like nobody has any questions, right? As far as what I went over, we can get into some just generalized Q&A. I have a long day. I could get into some more of the nitty gritty, but I don't want to. I think I hit all the larger points that I wanted to start this path down this road that I'm planning on going. For the future chats. Nobody has any comments. If you do have a question or comment, make sure you use a question mark, and then we will dig into some other questions. Do I still think Whatnot is a standout in selling in live selling platform? I would say yes, but I could be completely biased because that's where my success lies. So to tell you that I've done research to have uh, a data driven reason for that answer, I don't. All I have is my own personal opinion and perspective on how things are going for me. So I would say yes, but in full transparency, I haven't looked to see what the other platforms are doing number wise, or what their year over year growth is, or what they're doing that would make me think they have an opportunity to surpass Whatnot. Do you have any thought leaders that you follow on this particular topic, or blogs or sources that you could dive a little deeper? We are going to dive deeper into this. If that's what you're asking, that's what the next show is, just going to be compounding. This this whole thing that we just did, this is all stuff I put together. I didn't go glean this off of other people's principles. This is a principle that is in perspective that I personally um thought through, put together for my own personal application. I like to look back and see how things have progressed, and then I like to see if I see patterns. And this is essentially a pattern that I picked up on over the history of economics and commerce. And after I saw the pattern, I realized that we're in a shift right now. I believe we are in a shift to another stepping stone. So, where those elements of there's going to be other, like, if I really wanted to really go into it, there's going to be other smaller vacuum evaluation where there was a new vacuum created that created a new baseline of value. It's riddled throughout history, but these are the biggies, in my personal opinion. You're not too late because you can go watch it. So somebody else asked some other questions. So we ready to just shift to bunny trail time? Random rambling time? We are going to compound this conversation in the future. Don't worry. So since nobody really asked too many questions earlier on just random questions, feel free to ask. If you already asked and I didn't answer it, please do so again and use a question mark. I'm not going to scroll up. The Friday show was short and sweet because of staffing situations. So I didn't want to have no sale because we understand the principles of consistency is the most integral path to success on whatnot, and pretty much on any live stream selling platform, in my opinion, and almost everybody else's. So I had to show it was just short. So I know people asked some other questions. I was not ignoring you. Someone asked earlier if us new sellers are starting too late. Absolutely not. No, I just, if you're asking about the principle I was just talking about, we are in the infancy. Okay. The first you had the trial error, which was a couple of years. Okay. So you had 2 or 3 years of this principle behind selling, of live stream selling, and how that's going to work and what the dynamics are going to be like and how people are going to respond to it, so on and so forth. Is it going to be proven successful? That's kind of like a stale period that doesn't apply to what I would consider the real opportunity period has been the last probably 2 or 3 years. So you got a 2 or 3 year of trial, 2 or 3 year now of understanding that the value is there and it's going to take off. And you can see it. You can already see it. Like I said earlier, you're seeing it across all commerce platforms. They're starting to integrate live into it because that's where it's going. Whether you like it or not, that's where it's going. Um, So your opportunity is huge right now. It has not hit saturation. The prime opportunities and things that are come that are going to be available for leveraging for additional valuation. I mean, it's going to be a ton. So no, you're not late. Are there any particular live sellers that you admire yourself or learn from? Listen, I don't. I'll tell you right now, I don't go on and watch a lot of people. And when I do watch, I'm just in full transparency. Um, Actually, Let me rephrase this. I don't watch a lot because I like to keep my nose to the grindstone in the principles that I believe lead me to success. Yes, I'm going to talk about the PA meetup. Um, yeah, Bill. Uh huh. That's funny. So watching other people is not something I do too terribly much. So to answer your question in a simple no, are there people that I have grown to appreciate on this app? Obviously, there are. I've made friends with, there's the Zoe's Treasures crew. There's I Love Discounts. If I didn't appreciate and respect them for, you know, what they bring to whatnot, we wouldn't be doing a podcast together. And then there's other people that I think should be resoundingly more successful on here because of what they did for the app in the early days. There's SS Vintage, Zimpress, um, my 80 baby people, she was on and then left and came back, but um, she was the first person to ever capitalize on some of the principles I'm talking about by being the first seller on here to go live and sell right out of a storage unit. I don't know if she knows that, but she capitalized on that, on taking advantage of the things that we are used to. You got to realize at one point in time, no one had done these things, and there were firsts. And she did that. She was one of the firsts to do that when they opened up the storage unit category. Um, we were the first to go shopping inside a house, but those are the. And I've been on here for 5 years, so I don't know if that answers your question, but that's the way I view it. I don't have anybody that I go and watch on a regular basis. I scroll from time to time to get a pulse of what's going on that may be influencing the market and for me to see if there's anything I need to adjust, not any one person. I like to see what if I'm going to go on, I'm going to be scrolling around in the category that I deal in. I deal mostly in jewelry right now, so I'll go bopping around and seeing what seems to be either a trending attribute in style or as far as style of merchandise or product or selling. Sorry, Dragonfly Neen. Like, if I'm on and you're on, do I pop in? Yeah, I popped in because I think I bid on something in your room the one time. But it was purely just by luck. I was like, oh, Deneen's on. Do I go in? And actually, I don't even know. Was that your show? I don't know if that was your show. You may have been selling on the other one. It was yours? Okay. Yes, I did buy some items from Zimpress. And I'm not I bought I can count on maybe I may have gotten to two hands now, the amount of people that I purchased from. But Zimpress, I've purchased the most items from, and that's still not a whole lot. And most of them just happened the other day. And just for everybody to, just so you understand, that was just by I had downtime. I was sitting down and relaxing upstairs. Zimpress was on, and when she's on, I jump in to see how things are going for her, and I bid on some items, and those items have a purpose behind them. We're going to be getting together, and when it's going to happen, I don't know. So everyone just keep watching. We haven't done this for a couple of years. We wanted to make it a yearly tradition, but we didn't. And I want to bring it back, and that is to have a sale designated where all the proceeds, all the money goes to a pet rescue. We've done several of them, and we're going to do it again. So the items I bought from Zimpress will be getting added to that. And I might go into other people's rooms and buy stuff so I can do seller shout outs while I'm selling the merchandise for the pets. So for the pet rescue. So that's what was going on there. All right. Any other just random general questions? Did I miss the plan on the cards? What plan on the cards? There's your base set of 6 cards. Oh, no, 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 wish list rose. No, 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 no. No. That's going to happen this second half of the year. We're only into the first month, and I think I told everybody that at the end of this month, basically the first week of next month, I'll start letting you know the trickle of uh, marketing we're going to be doing for that. So, Zimpress, did you seriously just get here? You missed the whole thing where I was just talking about you? All right. We we need some questions. Or otherwise, I'm also going to talk about one other thing and get going. But I have a whole nother half an hour. I was getting much needed coffee. You're out of tag and you're getting coffee. So the event, the event. Who here is interested in going? I should have put him in. I will put him in later today. So you'll be able to go to. Actually, I should just do that now. Zoe's Treasures. What's the event? Well, go to Zoe's Treasures shop right now. They're available at your shop. I forgot to put them in, Zoe or Tracy. You can go to Zoe's Treasures, okay, and see all the information. But plug as much as you can right now, Zoe. Zoe's Treasures, Tracy, and anybody else. Put the information in, and I'll talk about it. put the where they need to go, the cost, the time, the day, all that information, because I don't have it right here in front of me. October 3rd, Harrisburg. It's a PA meetup. And here's the view. Here's my personal perspective on this that I think is going to be awesome. You're doing this. It's an independently run meetup, correct? When I say that, it's not directly tied to whatnot. So it gives us a little bit, in my opinion, it gives me more freedom to kind of say what I'd like to say without feeling like I'm crossing any boundaries that may be precon preset or insinuated. So yeah, $28 includes breakfast and lunch. From noon. What's the time frame? Thank you. From what time to what time? I forget. So here's a breakdown. 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. I shouldn't say breakdown, but you get all the information. You have plenty of time to plan. There's going to be four speakers. So there's going to be Tracy, correct? Talking. Tracy, what topics are you talking about? Let's do a whole rundown here. What topics, and then we'll do Q&A after this. What topics? No, she'll have them up there literally in minutes. Don't worry, they'll be there, and get them. There's plenty of time, but I'm going to be uh, making them available um, throughout my shows. They'll be available for purchase as well. But if you have any other questions, curiosities, concerns, or anything like that, just contact Tracy from Zoe's Treasures. But I'm looking forward to it. I've been to one meetup, and this will be my second one, and it's works out great for me because it's super super close, right? So make sure you go check that out if you're interested, obviously. Let's get to questions. Now it's time for generalized open questions. I do this usually at the first half hour, but there wasn't a whole lot. And again, if you already asked me a question before and I didn't answer it, I'm not ignoring you. When I get on a roll or I'm talking about a specific topic, I try to stay on that and not get distracted, because I am easily distracted. And then I get off topic and don't get to accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish as far as the topics go. Thank you about the ceiling. Thank you. Thank you. Do we have no other questions? Come on. I have almost another half hour. If we don't, we can call it we can call it a day. New seller. Nice. Well, congratulations on being a new seller. At one point Friday, people started sharing how many they have been married in comments. Can you discuss how that might affect bidding, arbitrary coherence? How many years they've been selling? I mean, yeah, how many years they've been married? Yeah, yeah. So here's the deal. I'm going to talk about that. Not so much arbitrary coherence principles. Random numbers in chat. Could it have an effect? Yes, but you can steer the effect away from that. The biggest effect, Millicent, that's going to have in your is a distraction. Like, the numbers could have a minute effect from the principle's arbitrary coherence, but the distraction is going to be, yeah, it is going to be colossal. Uh, Unit Finds. I'm going to call you Unit Finds because I'm going to butcher your first name. Thank you for the raid. You and you alone can feel free to plug your shows. Let everybody know what you sell when you sell it. And anybody likes what they have to say, please go mark or follow. Remember, everybody, one and only one person can plug their shows. That's a raider, and the raider only, which can do so up to 2 or 3 times in the next several minutes if they so desire. Again, thank you for the raid, and I hope you had a great, wonderful show. So what happened is I started talking about my anniversary just happening, and then everybody started, the community likes to talk about community things. They all start talking about the years that they've been married, how long they've been married. Some people start talking about how many times they were divorced, so on and so forth. And it's pretty easy to understand. And this is important information. I'm glad you brought it up, Mill. Yes, the numbers in the chat could have, but the numbers are rooted pretty deep behind the what I call the front end handle to the statement. So that's another level you have to understand. So in arbitrary coherence, people are going to read, and the effectiveness of that number gets weakened as it goes down in the sentence structure. But what I'm saying is, if they were to put the 11, 12, 15, 20 years in the front, it may have more of an impact from an arbitrary coherence principle, as opposed to I've been married or been happily married for 12 years. That's pretty far down. So it's not going to have as much of an influence. But the influence that it may have had is completely muted by the distraction of the entire conversation starting to happen and just going on nonstop. Now, you need to balance between back and forth when it comes to distractions. You want people chatting, you want the community to be engaged. You always want the engagement to be as close to the product as possible. I always call that stuff NESI, non essential social engagement. That's the least valuable to you. Um, but it still happens. Your job is to redirect. Okay. Um, you can have some finesse to your redirection. Everyone here knows that I just call it right out. I just flat out say, "Oh, we're getting distracted. I'm gonna get back to paying attention to the merchandise I'm selling." Anybody here been to my shows and noticed that I used to play a little more on the strategy side and try to steer it elsewhere, but there's no need to. People are completely fine. They understand you're there to sell stuff, and then you just say, "Oh, we're getting really distracted here, everybody. Let's get back to paying attention to what we're selling." And then I'll do something to reset. You'll hear me say, "Oh, it's time to reset. Everybody, it's a reset. Let's all throw emojis in the chat." And I have everybody throw a bunch of emojis in the chat so they have a psychological understanding. It's a call to action. So they mentally understand now it's time to refocus, and everyone does. They all start refocusing. We all get back to paying attention to the items that we're selling. So VC designs, I have no idea. That's a technical question that would be more suited for online research because it's nothing I would have ever looked to do. New seller, just go for it. 342 and approach has a shared success is tied to accepting whatnot culture. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know what you mean by whatnot culture. Okay. Shell Pal vintage. That's a topic for another day. My blood pressure will go through the roof. We'll talk about that another time. So I'm going to answer this question. Make sure you don't refrain from asking me the questions you already asked before. So the question is, new seller is asking me, just go for it. 342 and Broach Babe has shared success is tied to accepting whatnot culture, start low and volume selling. I agree with start low and I agree with volume selling 100%. How much do you agree? I'm guessing as far as the accepting whatnot culture. Well, yeah. So I said this at the top of the show. These are two principles that you need to abide by in order to be successful, or two statements you need to allow to sink in. I don't use the strategies I use because I'm successful. I use them to become successful. Okay. I don't use them because I'm successful. I use them to become successful. All right. That's the first thing you have to understand. People always talk about, you know, this, that, and the other thing about having a warehouse, having employees. That is all built on the foundational principle that I talk about step by step. All right. It's not like it's the other way around. It's not. And then the other thing, systems to success will not change to accommodate you. You have to change to accommodate it. Okay. That falls in line with what you were talking about earlier, the part of the question about the culture aspect. Yeah, I agree with it in that term, in that perspective. This entire chat The meat and potatoes of what we were talking about today was the dynamic shifts in valuation principles that are coming down the pike due to the vacuum that has been created from going from e-commerce to live selling, which is what I call x-commerce, experience-based commerce, uh, in online selling. You are going to have to adapt to it. It is not going to adapt to you. If you want to view that as culture, so be it. But it's going to happen across all platforms, not just this platform. Yes, Dragonfly Neen. Indeed. It's there to be had. It's available. It no two ways about it. Uh yeah. What not culture. It's not, listen, let's put it in the grand in reality. That's not, remove whatnot. Remove whatnot from that statement. That's just commerce. Low price, let me rephrase that. Perceived low price and volume sales. 100%. That's an ingrained attribute across every element of selling. Um, are there caveats to that? Absolutely. But generally, that's a big portion. Can you create a niche for yourself outside of that? Sure, if that's what you want to do. To me, that's a lot harder work to do, a lot more effort. Or when those paths are very, very ingrained and easy to capitalize on. What? Do new sellers grow their business faster by dressing in costumes and putting on a skit? No. Uh, are there attributes of creating a potential leverageable value to that? Sure. Is that going to be the only method needed in order to succeed? No. Yeah. Yeah. The main thing. Yeah. There's pillars that you build your business on. That's not one that I suggest. Can it be some added value? Yeah, because we're talking about creating entertainment, creating an experience, you know. So, is there value to that for some people? Yeah. Is there value to that for some buyers? Yeah, absolutely. Is it a fundamental principle that I would say everyone needs to adopt in order to succeed? No, not at all. Yeah, jet set. Uh-huh. How does category of show impact new live seller performance? I don't know. You have to ask what, not that. I don't think my interpretation of your question is that you're wondering if being in a different category impacts you as a new seller. No, no. I mean, no matter what category you go in, there's going to be dominant sellers, and the category you go in shouldn't be dictated by other sellers. It should be dictated by what you want to build as far as the business goes, and staying in that lane. So don't decide not to sell in a certain category because there's certain sellers that also sell in that category. You can't discount runoff either. Understand, people look for places to go when they think they can't get what they want because they have a pre conceived idea that if somebody has a ton of people in their room, the prices are going to be too expensive, so they're going to go looking elsewhere. When people scroll, they end up in your room. There's so many other attributes to the way people search and look for stuff these days and end up in your room. Your job is to capitalize on the things we talk about to keep people in your room when they pop in, because people's time in rooms, especially when they're new on the app, is probably pretty quick until they find a home. And you want to be that initial home. You want to be that initial anchor. And there's always, right now, with the expansion that is before us with this platform and new people adopting it and getting comfortable with online live selling, you have plenty of room to make a following or get a following or a buyer base in any category. Yeah, wish list. Don't worry about all of that. You're you need get your fundamentals down before you even worry about any of that. Your fundamentals are what you're going to sell, the strategies in which you're planning on leveraging in order to sell the items, and get on and sell the stuff. Create a consistent timeline that uh, consistent. Okay, again, consistency being the key term here. Make sure you're running at the same time your shows as much as you possibly can. That is very, very important. And start developing a base. All right. Learn from your mistakes, make changes and adapt as you need, and keep going. Don't worry about any of that other stuff. It's all it does is creating fear and excuses for you to not do something. If you really want to boil it down, more of what you ask me, wish list, I'm just going to be 100% transparent with the questions I get from you a lot, is more fear based questions than action based. They come from a like, I'm worried about doing this and that, and it may be not worth it. You need to take action, get in there and start selling and learn from your experience. Stop worrying about what everybody else is doing and what else is going on. Worry about what you can do and what you have available to offer, and get on and start selling as much as you can. Spend that time you are worried about all that actually selling. Yeah, but the worry about loss is the hidden, that's it, that is the blanket statement everyone can use, but the truth behind it is the actions that you take is where you start your road towards making money. If you're always worried about losing a dime or a penny, you're never going to get anywhere because you are going to lose some money somewhere. You're never going to hit it perfect. And trying to observe everything all the time and equate or figure out how you're going to deal with every eventuality is not going to ever happen. You're never going to create your own perfect storm of an environment. Yes, I have what? Lost money? I don't know what the response yes I have to is. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like you're not going to avoid losing money. What's going on, Moon Sky? Oh, you might like this, Moon Sky. The morning chat shows are now going to be available on YouTube. Not on Green 13. It's Reece on Resale. Someone will put it in the the handle in there for you, hopefully. If not, I'll try to do it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Picking your category that you sell in should be based on what you're selling, not what other sellers there are in that category. That's what I'm saying. Pick your category based on what you have the ability to offer in merchandise and style of selling, not what other sellers where other sellers are. Let me rephrase that. That's where you can tinker around with categories. You have storage units, and then you have what is it? Home decor. What's the other one? Estate sales, that kind of stuff. Like those kind of encompass the ability to sell a magnitude of different items, and one may work better for you depending on what type of crowd you want to get. What recommended category would I put? Are you talking about items, or are you talking about clothing? Clothing? I don't know the clothing categories. When I sold clothing, I just was in men's vintage and just sold everything across the board. So that's one of those things where just pick a clothing category and start selling in it and see if you get a buyer base. You realize this is another thing. We're going to go back really quick, and then I'm running short on time. People in here, when they buy, okay, they might favorite categories, they might scroll into categories, and then whatnot determines discoverability by subcategories and major categories. So even if you favorite, let's say, women's clothing, they might still incorporate children's clothing and men's clothing, just clothing in general, because it's what they call an adjacent category. So don't be scared to pick one, go into it and start selling and draw a crowd. Because if you find a footing in one, they will recommend you in the discoverability aspects of whatnot to other people in adjacent categories because you have reached some, success. So go read about how discoverability works. It's available here and whatnot. Apply the principles that they literally spell out in black and white in order to get more discoverability uh, to your shows, and pick a clothing category in this situation and start selling in it. That, and people, you never know um, what they're going to decide to buy, especially if they're buying for resale. You got to understand too, a lot of your footing that you get on here first starts with people that are sourcing on here, right? Tons of people source on here. And that's perfectly fine. And you want to keep it that way because that's where you get your start. Those are the people that always have money. They're the ones that also understand the principle that they might get some things that are not the best. They understand their loss potential. They're buying stuff. They take the good with the bad as long as they're making money off the merchandise they're buying from you. They keep coming back. And then eventually, as you get your footing, you're going to get more and more people that are willing to pay retail prices and then also buy other things. So if they're there for a profit, they're going to buy stuff from you no matter what. If they sell clothing and they see a profitable opportunity you're in men's clothing, let's say, and women's clothing, you have some women's clothing and children's clothing that could provide opportunity for profit, they're going to bid on it. Biggest mistake I made was taking a break. That's the same answer all the time. Biggest mistake we ever made is when we first started on here. We springboard very quickly. Had to pick this old house series in a new category on whatnot. Really managed to capitalize and be on the top of the in that category. And then because of our old business model, we took some time off. We still had our Friday sale every week. We understood to keep something going, but we were growing and applying more and more sale days to whatnot. And then we stopped all but one sale day to go do um, retail arbitrage, which was a dying principle anyway. So it was terrible on both ends. We stopped our momentum and continued what was already dying as far as our business model at the time. Terrible decision, with hindsight being 2020. Resellers are the best buyer. Yeah, they are. But realize too, here's what's going to happen. Eventually, reselling is going to be from one live stream platform for another. People are going to be buying on X, Y, and Z live streaming, selling on whatnot, or buying on whatnot, and then selling on XYZ platform, because it is going to be the new value base. for resale and eventually retail. Once the retail world starts learning how they can leverage the experience model, and they will. I mean, what you guys have to realize eventually there's going to be production, like tons of money dumped into production quality experience and entertainment principles built into sales with live stream selling. Yeah, goodwill's on. That's, no, well, I'm talking about a whole nother. I'm talking about m- marrying like true entertainment, showmanship, character building, storyline building. All that's coming. You guys realize that, right? That's what you're going to have to compete against in the future. That's where the new value bases are going to be created. There will be eventually interactive aspects. Yeah. That's what live stream, that's why I'm telling you the what I call X commerce, experience based commerce, is the new vacuum to valuations. People don't know what things should be worth in that, and the industry is going to understand the opportunity to capitalize on that new vacuum is then to create their own value principle, and they can incorporate so many other elements into it. And that's what I'm saying. We're going to talk about more in a granular perspective on the topic that we started with earlier. It's why the title of the show was called Vacuum Sales. And what I'm finishing with here, if you're interested in knowing, you can go back and watch this on YouTube. Someone, if you can put that in there one more time for everybody, it will be made available. Not sure exactly when, but it will. You can go back and watch this episode, and we're going to compound and build off of that. What I just talked about, we'll get more uh, in depth, granular, and what I see as potential uh, future avenues or applications to this new opportunity. There you go. Reese on resale, not resell. Okay. It'll be up available in a couple hours. And tonight's topic, sourcing. Yeah. It's Reese on resale, like not sell, sale. That's fine. Funny story about that is Noel was putting this together, and the initial one he did the same thing, and I was like, no, it's supposed to be resale, and that was my fault because I said I'll text the actual the verbiage I wanted to him. So um yeah, I wanted the noun, not the verb version of that. So yep, yep. So I'm gonna get going. It's 10 o'clock. I've been really trying to stick to that 2 hour time frame on here. Tomorrow I'll be back on. I'm gonna have some fun stuff to sell as usual. I think the show should be up there, worthless junk. Tonight we are talking sourcing on the reselling roundtable. So make sure you're there. That's 6:30 p.m. Eastern time tonight on YouTube. And yeah, we're gonna see who we can raid. Let's see what new sellers are available today. What? Nah, we have to. Oh, maybe not. Hold on. Oh, look at this. It's actually like new sellers. Seriously? We'll go to mix bargain mix. 19 people. Isn't that cool? Like, I actually went to new sellers, and it wasn't a bunch of gargantuan large sellers that have been on here selling millions of dollars literally probably every day. That's who they used to put in my feed when I pick on new sellers. We've rated them before? Awesome. I didn't know that. So they're good. Apparently they're good. So if they're awesome, you give me all the credit. If for some reason you don't like them, I can't say this because I did pick them. Yeah, you can either blame me or not. Sorry. I can't do my usual outro. But until next time, everybody, happy bidding, and I look forward to seeing you there.